Prepare for arrival. Mr. Savage, we're 1 minute out.
We then began a program of remedying those abuses and inequalities.
Got to sing our great country. Freedom, security, and greater opportunity. I'm not sure we've absorbed the full impact.
Let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic process.
Government is not the solution to our problem. We gather tonight at a dramatic and deeply promising time in our history. The world has known changes of almost biblical proportions.
Must be not only the envy of the world, but the engine of our own. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right. Today we pledge an end to the era of deadlock and drift, and a new season of American renewal has begun.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Ladies and gentlemen, patriots with backbones and Americans who still know which end the flag goes up. Welcome back to the Social Hand Grenade, the show where truth gets pulled like a pin and lobbed straight into the complacency of modern America. Tonight, we've got a special kind of guest. A man who didn't just talk about serving his country, he actually did it. A Vietnam veteran who stood on the deck of the legendary USS Ranger, defending a nation that today half the country treats like an optional suggestion. While the rest of us were still trying to figure out how to walk, this man was navigating steel, sea, and war, doing the kind of work that built the freedoms that people now take for granted on social media. But he didn't stop there. After serving overseas, he came home and kept serving, this time as the Mayor of Briarcliff, Texas. While most politicians treated their office like a stepping stone to a book deal or Netflix contract, this man treated his community like a duty. Imagine that. Leadership rooted in service instead of ego. Wild concept, I know. Our guest tonight, Keith Beyer, represents something that's almost extinct in American public life. A man who served before he spoke, who acted before he posted, who lived the values that this nation was built on: courage, humility, responsibility. Buckle up. We're about to sit down with a veteran, a mayor, a patriot, a man who's seen the best and worst of this country up close and still believes it's worth fighting for. This is the Social Hand Grenade. I'm Tony Savage, and we're lighting a fuse with a real American. All right, so are you ready to get started?
Yes, sir, I am. Tony, I want to thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. I'm glad you came. I think we're going to have an interesting talk. So the USS Ranger. I'd like to start with what kind of ship is the USS Ranger? There's a lot of folks that have no clue.
The Ranger was the very first supercarrier built from the keel up to be an aircraft carrier.
Okay.
It actually, the mascot was the Lone Ranger when we pulled into port.
Okay.
You had a man on a horse riding up and down the flight deck to the theme of the Lone Ranger, believe it or not.
So you actually had a horse on deck.
We certainly did.
That's awesome.
And he was full dressed in uniform as the Lone Ranger. The Ranger's also famous. The movie Top Gun was filmed on the USS Ranger.
Oh, I did not realize
that. For the younger generation. That's correct.
So the original Top Gun with Tom Cruise.
That's correct.
That was on your ship.
That was on the Ranger.
Okay.
We also did. They used to have a TV show, the Thrill Seekers. A.J. Foyt, Bobby Unser, all them guys came on board to get launched off of our carrier, and it was quite a sight to watch these civilians sitting inside of these F-4s being launched off that deck. Yeah. It was something very funny, actually, but it was a wonderful experience.
That's awesome.
I cannot convey to you what it's like to be on. I ran a catapult number 4. I was the topside super, responsible for the hooking up and prepping for that thing to go off.
This is the steam-powered.
This is steam-powered
catapult that launched these aircraft off the deck.
So they say that the aircraft carrier is the the tip of the spear of America's military power. Well, the catapults happened to be the bow.
Yeah.
So we took a lot of pride in what we did, and it's as a young man, there's no experience like it.
I imagine.
From the day, whether it's day or night, it can be quite frightening at night. You have no lights to work with, and there's a lot of moving weapons, fuel, and men. You definitely.
So you maintain light discipline and all that sort of stuff when you're out there, and
Absolutely.
so you're working in the dark.
People ask me often, what is the difference between the branches? Well, unless there's a war going on, most of the other services are on bases. The Navy doesn't matter whether it's a war or peace. We do the same thing no matter what. We're live fire. We're never at home. You're always going somewhere, and that's just the way that life is. That's why they give us good food, which has now changed quite a bit from my understanding of this younger generation. They actually have cell phones, game rooms, Game Boys. These things didn't exist in the military I served under.
Yeah, I will vouch for the good food. The one and only time I spent some time on a naval ship was in New Orleans. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, I was deployed with 1st Cav to New Orleans, and there was nothing because there was no power. It was like Louisiana had turned into a third world nation overnight because there was no running water, no power, no nothing. And so the one and only place you can get a hot meal was a hospital ship. And they did have great food. I also learned that you got to shut the door behind you before you open up the next door, because I did not realize that. Never been on a ship before, and you get into a corridor, and when both those doors were cracked open, it sucked the other one closed, and it did it pretty quickly. It was kind of terrifying to realize they're compression inside these ships. You got to shut the door behind you.
There's a lot of experience that go into going aboard ships. Your knees and your shin bones pay a terrible price.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Yes, they do. Still got knots on my shin bones from all my days on that ship.
Yeah.
But no, the Ranger was special. We spent the end of the war, Vietnam War, in the Tonkin Gulf, and
which is where it kicked off, right?
That's correct. That was Yankee Station. And I was one of the few people. The draft was ending. Being from Texas, I actually joined. I volunteered. Okay. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, and they fulfilled my wishes to that regard. Texans were always, as kids growing up, taught that you go to wherever the flag is in trouble. And at that time, it was Vietnam. As a matter of fact, the company before me, 120 men, all from the state of Texas. When I served in 1973, 20% of the United States military came from Texas. So I'm very proud of where I'm from as well.
Absolutely.
I grew up in rural Texas, hunting and fishing as a young man all my life, and it's always been God, country, family, in that order.
Absolutely.
That's the way we were raised.
Yes, sir. So, you went through the civil rights era, right?
Yes.
So you've seen political ups and downs. It wasn't always just smooth waters. Obviously, we're not in exactly calm waters now when it comes to political environment. But do you think that now is as chaotic as it was during the civil rights era?
I think today's far worse.
Really?
I truly do. When they did the integrations into our school, where the young black children were coming in contact, it was more out of fear. It wasn't hate. We did not grow up in a generation to hate. Maybe that would have been in the days long ago of our great-great-grandfathers, but that certainly wasn't any child being raised in this country at that point in time. How can you be afraid or hate something that you don't even know? You really can't. And the only stigmatism is what somebody would say. Well, as a child, your impression of somebody is going to be based on the impression that they give you. And I was never, when the schools were integrated in the first days of it, yes, most of it was being done by parents, not the kids. It only took a few days for everything to settle down.
Like actually in the schools?
In the schools, that's correct.
Okay.
As a sports person.
So how old were you when that integration took place?
I was 13 years old the year that they integrated our schools.
Okay.
And yes, they had police there, and there was parents and the riding aspect of it, and that's what you saw as a kid. But really, we were given no explanation as to why. That disconnect came from the parents and grandparents. There was no way that we could have known. I mean, I grew up in the rural part of Texas. I would say that, I grew up with young black men from that region all my life, so it didn't surprise me. I think you have to be taught to hate, I think. I don't think it comes natural.
Right. No, I don't disagree. I think, and a lot of it is based out of fear. I feel like.
Okay.
So with the civil unrest, because you look back at the old videos of the civil rights era, and it was rioting much like we see now. I don't think that they were setting things on fire quite like they were in Kenosha. But I mean, there was definitely civil unrest.
There's a huge difference between the rioting of my younger years and the rioting you have today. The rioting that was going on as in my youth out of the black neighborhood, the civil rights, was just exactly that. Extremely oppressed areas, people that were not being treated as human beings. And yes, they had the right to stand up. The riots that I see today, or the burning of other people's businesses and properties, have nothing to do with oppression. As a matter of fact, the slavery ended, 150-something, 70 years ago? You've had that many years not being to come out of it. All white people were slaves 2,000 years ago under the Roman Empire. So we were slaves far longer, but we've had 2,000 years to overcome it. The black American has had 150 years to move forward. Will they make it? They already are making it. Look around you today at how many successful, intelligent black Americans that there are, from TV to businesses, and incredible on podcast. Today on YouTube, if you want to see a lot of young men that are truly preaching and teaching values, you only have to turn on YouTube and you'll see them. I'm impressed.
Absolutely.
And I'm really encouraged at this part of America. I think it's turning.
Okay. Well, from that time frame till Vietnam, because Vietnam was also that time frame was pretty chaotic, even towards the end of Vietnam.
Yes.
There was they didn't really appreciate soldiers very much, at least in certain communities. You flew into California, you were going to get spit on.
That's correct.
So, did you experience anything like that?
Well, that was also the great beginning of the American drug epidemic in this country.
I believe it.
And so everything was changing. From the music was changing, the rock and roll, the drugs that were being introduced. The children of the greatest generation, that you got to remember what happened. The men of America went to one of the most horrible wars ever fought. And when they got home, they said very little. I mean, what they saw can't be explained, can't be shared. As a veteran yourself, you cannot share with a friend that never went what you've seen.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of stuff that you can't really understand how things go down the way they go down unless you're there.
And those men and women that went through that time, there was a disconnect between the adult to the child. And I think that the communications, my father very seldom said too many words to me, but you had to pay really close attention to when he did, because it was generally you were going to get hurt or do something that was going to get you hurt if you didn't. So
Right.
I think that generation, and then you throw in what happened with TV, I think after World War II and coming out of Vietnam, that this has been an orchestrated effort from education and Hollywood to do the damage that you see in our country today. Those two entities. And when it comes to our education system, I don't think it's a mistake that you have all these socialist teachers and all the types of people that you have in these schools. What's happening here, though, is the parents are not being made aware of what these kids are being taught in these. I've even seen some of the where the teacher goes, "It's none of the parents' business."
Oh yeah, that's wild.
That is unheard of.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And the same thing, if you go back to our generation, a man and a woman weren't allowed to sleep in bed. Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore had to wear pajamas and sleep in twin beds as a husband and a wife. There used to be a thing that governed what you saw on TV. Look at your TV today.
Right.
The TV used to have father figures in them. You used to have men. They've castrated men and put the genitals on the women. The Hollywood has reversed it. They have stripped it, and it takes it takes a plan to do the damage that I believe that has happened. And I'll put it to you this way: when the North Vietnam finally won the conflict over there, and we left, you know what the very first thing it is they did? They took over the education system from the foundation root and began the indoctrination of every child in that country into that culture. That is the first place you want to go if you're going to reintroduce another government, another concept, is to the youth. Because then it only takes 20 to 25 years and you control a generation. So this has been a methodical plan that just didn't happen. The rest of the world has wanted America for a long time. Why? Because we are the greatest nation that ever existed. We alone have saved this world twice.
Yep.
Not once, twice we have saved it. No other nation could have done that. No other nation could have fought 2 land campaigns on both sides of the world while delivering all the necessary war materials, supplies, jeeps, gas, food, and everything you need to the other armies as well.
And then giving it back.
And that's correct. No, and for somebody to try to sit there and say, we should be ashamed of who we are, you better drop down on your knees and be grateful who we are, or we would be speaking German right now. Some of you would have already been sent to gas chambers.
No doubt.
And it is because of your forefathers and your grandfathers and grandmothers that you walk around with the freedoms that you have today. They would not exist if it wasn't
Oh yeah, could
for
you
the people that
imagine
come before you.
if the Nazis had succeeded? Yeah, I'm sure
They would have.
Oh yeah.
Without us, they would have.
If we would have just sat back and stayed in that isolation.
They would have been able to wipe it out one at a time, and then would America be able to take on everything
The
just
rest
by
of the
itself?
world?
By
Probably
itself?
not.
No. I had a. When you talk about the world, I had a man. When I was a pilot, and he came here from England, and he were flying, and I go, "What do you want to see?" He goes, "I just want to see." And we were flying around the country, and I go, "Is there any?" He goes, "I said, what are you doing?" He goes, "I want to know how your country in 250 years came to be what you are. We're 5,000 years old, and how did this happen?" And I had to kind of laugh. I said, "Well, it's really easy." I said, "Why we are who we are." I said, "When you think about Italy, who lives there? Italians. When you think about China, who lives there? The Chinese." I said, "When you think about England, who English? America is where the world lives. So when you want to mess with the continental United States of America, you're going to mess with the entire world because that's what's here.
Right. And it's all the thrill seekers.
It is.
Because, if you're Chinese and you migrated to the U.S., I mean, it takes a little bit of an adventurous to pull that off. Same thing with the European or English, any one of these groups to, just pack up and say, I'm headed to America. I mean, you got a little bit of a thrill seeker living in you.
Oh, yes, you do. Can you imagine what it was like for a man to load his wife and his children onto a little wooden boat and set sail across the Atlantic Ocean, knowing that there was nothing ahead of him but wilderness, animals, and he heard stories of wild Indians? What did it take to cause that event to happen? It took the oppression,
right,
the lack of hope, and a lack of tomorrow where he was at that made him get on that boat. I would rather take my chances than live like this.
Yeah, I'd like
and that's what our country is trying to get us.
Wild Indians and bears than live under the boot of a king.
And if these people in this country don't come to this realization, that is what is being attempted right now. They want this country to be the same peasants that they were when we left those countries 250, 300 years ago.
Well, I think that's what the Democrat Party is offering.
That's exactly what
I mean, the welfare system is essentially saying, we'll take care of you as long as you're willing to be a peasant. If you want anything more than that, we're not going to give you anything.
That's correct. And they've stripped out your history out of all of your books in schools. It's an elective now, from what I understand.
Get out. I wouldn't be shocking to me. I wrote an entire book about the Marxist rewrite of American history.
They took the identity.
Yeah, they absolutely have scrubbed the history, and they're very good at basically rewriting history in a way where they get to bring in their Marxist ideology, which eventually provides the country with the entire generation, and I believe at this point it's 2 generations that are self-loathing. They hate America, and they're taught like that since preschool. And it's because everything has that Marxist view of you have the oppressed and the oppressor. The oppressed is the heroes, the oppressor is the villain, and in a case with America where you're dealing with a population that 25% of the population reads below a 5th grade level, you really can't make these deals too complicated. So how do we make it real simple so we could pump it to the masses and they'll get the concept of these social constructs, and social engineering will actually take root, and we'll say a color is bad. The white people is who did it. Well, I mean, even if you look at slavery, when you had the Confederate States fighting for slavery, they didn't sell even the Confederate population of those states. They didn't sell it to them on slavery, because it was only 1% of individuals owned slaves because it was the wealthy, right? So how do you convince this poor farmer that doesn't own any slaves to go out here and risk his life to fight the Union Army to protect this rich guy's slaves or right to own slaves? They sold it as states' rights.
That's correct.
Well, the Union is they're attacking the sovereignty of the state, and we'll just essentially be a slave state to the Union if we don't fight them. And so that's how they got the common man to even fight for it. And that's still what Democrats do today, is they take the nasty business they're actually trying to get done, and they repackage it to a real nice concept, simple enough that the common man believes this is the righteous thing, and they get them to go after it. And that's literally how they've been chipping away at the Union. Because I believe that's the whole point of my book, is the neo-Confederate. I still believe their goal has not changed. Their methods have changed, but their goal is still the same, which is to overthrow the Union. And I think that that's why the Marxists love them, because it's the same goal they have. They want to overthrow the Union because they want to introduce a form of socialism, communism. Well, you can't do that as long as the republic still stands.
Well, what they want, I'll give you a stat. I've talked with a lot of educated young black people today, and one of the things that always surprises them, I say, when it comes to reparations, again, the giving away of money, if you go back in that time and you look at the beginning of slavery in America until the time that it ended, and then you look at the amount of African Americans that were killed, then you look at how many white men were killed in the Civil War to set that wrong right. It totals 620,000 men, American white men, died to set that wrong right. And those men that died never even owned a slave. So the price of reparations was paid for in blood. The 620,000 men that died represented 20% of the breed stock of the United States of America. So you want to talk about a war that was a horrendous war, the ramifications of killing the breeding male of this country by 20% is devastating. And we have not done, we have followed that up with two world wars. The cream of America's male keeps marching to our flags, and what stays behind is what you see running rampant in our streets. I personally, if you want to talk about the one thing that I think is kind of far, I think that the volunteer system is, when the Democrats are really big about talking racism, discrimination.
Yeah.
You know what's racist is our volunteer military. You only have one type of mindset in this country that really goes into the military service. The other side doesn't. And yet, that side is the one that is causing the vast majority of all your problems that you see in all these riots and all these protests. I don't see many military veterans in that.
Involved in riots?
And the burning of our people's buildings and merchandise.
I believe that's the people who have never had to really work hard for anything.
Right.
And you get in the military, you definitely get a sense of hard work. You know what sacrifice is. You're not going to go out there and burn someone's business down, just understanding how much work, effort, and sacrifice it took for an individual to gain that.
Plus, you get to see the rest of the world and what people are going through versus what you have here. You can be anything. I have led a very, very rich life. The greatest gift my mother gave me as a small boy is it's a man's world and you can go as far as your 2 feet will carry you. I grew up on a farm. My 2 feet would carry me a long, long way as a very young man.
Yeah.
And I took that attitude for the rest of my life. I have traveled this world over. I have served my country, both in a military and a civilian capacity. I've been able to fly across this country. It's been everything I dreamed it could be, but I'm the one that made that happen.
Absolutely.
But it was made to happen based on the work and the effort and the sacrifice of others. People should remember that. What you have came from the sacrifice of others. You would have nothing without them.
Yeah, I definitely completely understand that. Like you said, we would definitely be speaking German, and a lot of us, if they didn't make the very strict guidelines of whatever the Germans determined was, acceptable, we would have probably been gassed, and most Americans just wouldn't have tolerated living under the boot of a German, occupation. So I feel like most of us would be dead. The crazy thing is, I think that when it comes down to it, that a lot of the youth they get sabotaged. I feel like same thing. I walked and in my time it was a skateboard, but I would skateboard across town miles. I mean, literally miles. And even talking to my kid, when I wanted to find out where my friends were, I couldn't go on a social media. I couldn't jump on a cell phone. I had to ride around until I found where all the pile of bikes were. Because whoever's yard the pile of bikes were in, that's where all my friends were. And I'd have to go and knock on the door, and I'd have to actually talk to somebody, you know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like I was born in 1984, and so I graduated high school in 2001. And I feel like that my generation was pretty much the last generation that experienced that, because after that, cell phones. I mean, by the time I was getting out of high school, we were already starting seeing cell phones. I had a pager in high school because that was like the cool thing to have. I think after that, every generation after that, it's just you got a lot of that taken from you. You didn't have to go, and there wasn't so much effort. And the easier you make things, the less resilient people are, because it's that struggle that makes you so resilient. It
is that even from your generation, we might not have had the most. I mean, I saw the first air conditionings in the home, first color TVs.
There's another one, air conditioning. Good
phones
night.
Party line.
Party lines, yeah.
Life has gotten a lot easier, but it's gotten a lot more disconnected. Families have been taken. Church has been removed. Texas, you probably won't remember, when I was a kid, had a thing called the Blue Laws. No business could be open on Sunday unless it was a hospital. Emergency services only.
Okay.
Sundays were meant for church and family. So if you're from big families and you're in rural Texas, you're going to be around 25, 30, 40 aunts, uncles, cousins. It was family. The family has been stripped.
Right.
We turned our kid, and during the Blue Laws, wives were at home. When they ended all that, corporate America took over, took the wife out of the home to become a secretary or become something. Now we turned our TVs into parents. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, when I look back throughout my history, that is the first part where I saw the chiseling down. The teachers weren't teaching socialism and communism when I was a kid, but the television system was already beginning to break down and push the boundaries of what was permissible and what wasn't. And there was nobody there. And when your kids are turned over to that from the time that they get home, because till late, and you spend 1 hour a day with your children, and they can spend hours upon hours with what they're being fed them, you were fighting a losing war from the very beginning. And until we do something about that, restore family, it will not improve.
So that's the real question is, so we just talked about it. It's essentially deliberate social engineering.
Yes, it is.
But what is the real reversal? I mean, essentially, it seems like some of these things, it's like trying to, manually reverse the track on a tank. I mean, it's coming, regardless of what's going to be done.
Think about when they did the computers, right? And I saw the invention, obviously, of those. There was a company, still is, IBM. IBM made a particular product. It was called a typewriter. Millions and millions and millions of them. Women knew how to use those. In every office in America, you had a lady that sat at a phone and answered that phone. The advent of the PC took less than 1 decade to eradicate both. There are no more typewriters on any office desk, nor is there any ladies at a business that you can talk to. It's all GPT chat. And I've often wondered, if you're going to continue to lay off people and take away the jobs, then who's going to buy all the merchandise that it is that you're wanting to sell? And then the politicians, it's not enough that the greed at the corporate level that we've got in this country, it's the very fact that they imported 20 million unskilled poor laborers to compete against your high school graduate student, to undercut what rightfully should be his. I don't care if it costs $50 an hour to have your yard mowed. That should be the cost, and it should be being mowed by an American, not a foreigner. And don't tell me about they do the jobs nobody else wants to do. Nobody wants to do the job because you want to pay a minimum wage.
Well, and you think about that too. It's like Democrats are doing that under the veil. Again, they like to package it real nice and pretty, and we're pro-immigrant. But isn't it not that you're just importing slaves all over again? You're telling me that it's a job that no American wants to do, because precisely what you said, no one wants to pay a living wage to do that job. So you're importing people and displacing them to end up giving them a job that is not going to provide them with a living wage. It sounds to me like they're importing slaves all over again.
If they would have imported 11 million lawyers, doctors, educators, would it have been the same response? The answer is no.
No. No, not at all.
No. So you know
But
the
they
answer
need
there.
that dependency. I
Yeah,
100%
absolutely.
believe that they need that dependency. That's the same thing the welfare.
You got to have the poverty.
You got to have the poverty because they're not gonna have the voters.
You got to have the poverty, the lack of education,
Yeah, and that's
the
what
dependency.
The dependency. It's just, in my opinion, they are still the party of slavery. It's just this modern economic slavery they provide now.
The only difference between old slavery is they didn't have to pay them any money. They had to feed them. Now they got a thing called minimum wage. So
Which just pays you enough to feed you.
to feed you. That's exactly right. They just swapped one for the other. It's
Yeah.
still the same, and that's how you keep it. You keep importing the illegal labor to keep it suppressed at that artificial number, and you have your slavery. It's just tied to a minimum wage.
Right.
So
And it's like, how do you get the younger generation to realize that you're entitled to so much better than what they're offering, which is they're offering economic slavery.
the most incredible thing that I have seen happen in my lifetime is what has transpired over the last, I would say, 8 years. A man named Donald Trump came into office, and I started hearing words like fake news, the corruption.
Right.
All of my life, every parent always said, "Damn politicians." Now they didn't really. Before our lives, my life, people were Americans first. Yeah, they voted either Democrat or voted Republican, but to a man and woman, they all hated politicians to start with. They were an American first.
Right.
Somewhere in that division line, we started getting split up from being an American into being either a Democrat or a Republican.
Right.
Now that's where that axe went wrong. And now what happened on top of that is, you're right, your education. But what supported that? This news. These people are not, they used to be who, what, when, where, why, and how. That was what a journalist had to do. You made up your mind on what you thought about it. Now we have propaganda machines that tell you what to think, how to think it, and what you should do about it. So it's not being real news. If they can put a warning label on a pack of cigarettes, then they need to put a warning label on these news channels saying we are dedicated to the advancement of a democratic agenda.
Yeah.
You're either a news channel or you're not. And these people are not reporting news. They are reporting ideology.
I don't disagree with that. I think the same thing on conservative side. You see the slanted view of things, and it gets people riled up. But at the same time, it's not really a comprehensive understanding of what's going on.
And I haven't done the math on the money, but if you look at Doge, between that USA aid and right now they're talking about up in Minnesota, it could be as high as $600 billion.
Oh, yeah.
You know they have stolen. And I'm talking about they're all guilty of it. Every one of these, because if you're not paying attention to it, you're not doing your job. So to me, nobody in Washington D.C. has been doing their job. If you allowed $5 trillion to be stolen, divide $5 trillion by no more than 370 million Americans, and look how much money you'd be putting in your pocket just in the money they've stolen, let alone the
Right,
rest.
which is literally stolen out of your check each and every month, because that's where the money's coming from.
So that's a good exercise for your viewer. Divide 370 million people into $5 trillion. See how much money you'd be walking around in your checking account right now if it wasn't for what you personally are allowing to have happen up there.
Right, and that's just one, because you could look across the board, and there's abuse and fraud going on with every single one of these programs. Every single socialized program, there is abuse and fraud, and if we obviously have the technology, right?
Yes, we do.
We have the ability with AI. We can scrub through that data in the blink of an eye now, and go, oh, this person's dead. Oh, this person, is making a handsome living, but also receiving SNAP benefits. You know what I mean? All of these things can be reviewed and caught very easily. The problem is as soon as you introduce those systems, it doesn't leave it fast and loose enough for these politicians to get their cut. And I think that's really what it is. They don't want to catch the fraud and abuse because they're participants in the fraud and abuse.
Well, something you might not be aware of, it was my war that really caused a lot of the problems. Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard to pay for Vietnam.
Right.
When they took that dollar off that gold standard, that's what opened up Pandora's box and the ability to now print and print and print. There's nothing that is restraining any government agency, any political organization in this country from printing and printing. Most people right now are not aware that Joe Biden printed $5 trillion new dollars. Now, basic math. If on a Monday there's $5 trillion and the dollar's worth $1, and on Wednesday they come along and print another $5 trillion, that dollar on Monday is now worth 50 cents.
Sure.
This inflation and these costs aren't going to go away. The only way they can go away is you have to recall that money, which they're never going to do. So how do you get restraint back on these people? The forefathers gave us one of the greatest documents that has ever been witnessed by man, and it's called a Constitution. And it allows me, you, and everybody that will see this, living in this country, the right to amend that Constitution and place this federal government on a budget. We can tie that budget right straight to the GDP. That would end all of this business of which jobs we want to see succeed, which jobs we want to fail. It would end it all. And you can make it at 3%. The only way they can get a pay raise or they can get a perk project is if they grow the GDP, which is, guess who? Capitalism. What we're based on.
Right.
It's such a simple matter, and that is one of my greatest fears, is that Trump, and who's a smart man, and these people don't come to grips with, when we leave office, they'll go right back to where we were. If you don't put these people on some kind of a budget tied to the GDP, there's no way to stop them.
Oh, I 100% believe that if you get a Democrat in office, the borders will get wide open again.
Yeah, absolutely.
The U.S. aid will pop right back up and start dishing money out to all these nonprofits all over the world. And all of them are basically funneling money back into Democrat campaigns. I mean, hell, they had a Javelin missile, which is an anti-tank missile. You know, in the military, they write down the serial number on every damn thing. So they knew the serial numbers of these Javelin missiles they had given to Ukraine. Well, they started finding these Javelin missiles that are serial numbered to Ukraine in cartel raids in Mexico. So they're raiding these cartel facilities in Mexico, and they're finding an anti-tank missile that was given to Ukraine to fight the Russians. How the hell does that happen? Because these idiots are taking half of what we're giving them and then just selling it on the black market. There's corruption throughout every single program. Every single one.
And there doesn't appear to be any way to get these people into jail.
That's what's baffling to me, too. It is absolutely wild to me.
How do we ever let the government be self-policing?
Yeah.
When did they pass that law?
Who will guard the guards?
Well, yeah, you're going to put the coyote inside the chicken coop and expect them things to not touch a single one.
Yeah, I do not understand. Because to me, there's so many people that they caught dead to rights.
Yes.
And I mean, there's numerous people that, in my opinion, have been basically dead to rights. You're busted. I mean, from the Epstein thing, I mean, the one victim pointed out both the prince, but also Alan Dershowitz.
Tony, how long did it take January 6th from that date for the DNC to lock up 1,600 people? Within 12 months, 1,600 people were locked up.
That's wild.
No charges, no trial dates, and they were moving those kids around so the parents didn't even know where their children were being kept.
Yeah, that's crazy. You know what's wild to me is I actually was there. I stood on the steps of the Capitol, got maced in the face over it. I didn't, assault anybody. I didn't vandalize any property, but I did go there and protest. And I was right there on the line with the, police line where people did start, they got kinetic, and they hosed down everybody with mace, and I got maced. But the surprising thing is I had a buddy of mine that was in First Cav with me. Go with me. We flew out together, stayed in a hotel right across from the Capitol. We walked over to the Capitol. I had no idea this was all going to transpire. To me, I just thought we were going to stand around with picket signs, you know. And of course, it didn't transpire like that. But I videoed Facebook Live the whole time. I mean, I wasn't trying to hide anything. This is what was happening to me. I'm now a part of history. It's going down, you know. But FBI went and talked to my buddy, and you know, like you said, rounded up all these people. They never came and talked to me once. I never had anybody question me. Never said, hey, nothing. Never. I was very surprised because I was expecting that kind of phone call, or even if they were going to do a more intrusive, you know, and come and detain me to question me or something like that. Never happened. And it's shocking to me. The only thing that I can conclude is they already knew. They already knew everything they needed to know. You know what I mean?
Well, look at all the people and all the charges you see being levied today. I just don't see anybody in jail yet. Now, and they were using the Homeland Security Act, holding these people without these charges and without trial dates. And yet we see billions now being stolen left and right. Now, if a guy walking around on the grounds of the Capitol can be thrown in jail for something you think versus something we now know, why is this person walking free? Yeah. I can't answer that one.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can go down a list, and I mean, it's crazy because there's been hokey stuff, and like you said, you know, you got to kind of put partisan talk aside, but there's been hokey stuff with elections, and I know that like this whole thing kicked off because there was some hokey stuff with the election.
Yeah.
Everybody with, you know, an objective look at this would say, yes, there's some very hokey stuff that went down with this election. Well, I'm old enough to remember the same thing happened with the Bush Jr. election.
Oh, yeah.
It all came down to Florida. And guess who was the governor of Florida? His brother. And then it was the hanging Chad deal where they had to recount. And then eventually the Supreme Court stepped in and said, stop recounting. Bush won. And it was like, I thought, you know, I'm conservative. And I consider myself to be Republican, but there was some hokey stuff going down with that election as well.
You know who John Daly is, right?
Yeah.
The ex-mayor of Chicago.
Yeah.
The first man to steal an election with a paper ballot.
I didn't, that part I don't know.
That is Mayor Daley is the man who invented the theft of elections via the paper ballot. Now, guess who was basically the disciple of Chicago-style politics? Was one Barack Obama. And I'll go one step further. That COVID was created in a biolab in Georgia and was ordered to be destroyed because it was a military-grade weapon. Right. Obama took that drug with $1 billion, just like he went to Iran and sent it to Wuhan.
Yeah. That
was your last-ditch effort. And I had the documentary from the doctors that did this. On Facebook, had it saved.
Well, they called Fauci out on C-SPAN because they were investing in what they called gain-of-function research, which is essentially taking that virus and trying to make it more infectious.
Well, I had the entire thing by the doctors that did it saved, and it was on Facebook because it was a video that I'd watched, and they came in and took it out of my Facebook account. They came into my Facebook account and grabbed that information and took it out.
Yeah, that's wild.
It is wild what's going on out there. Truly is. But those paper ballots, how is this a guy that shows up in a U-Haul trailer with 250,000 paper ballots? It testifies to that extent, not be given credit for it. Yeah. That was in Pennsylvania, of all places.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I mean, there was all kinds of crazy stuff. The stuff where they shut down counting, and then as soon as everybody left, they started counting again. And I believe it was Pennsylvania where they blocked the windows. I mean, you don't block the windows unless you're about to do something nefarious. So, I mean, when it comes to that, I think there's on both sides, there's been instances where we could say there's been hokey stuff that goes on with elections, but it doesn't seem that the political establishment on either side cares enough to really investigate it.
people got to go back to being Americans like your parents, great-grandparents were. Damn politicians. They didn't trust them, period, either side. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you still knew that they were going to try to do something that's stealing your money because they're stealing our money. So people got to get past this, I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican. No, I'm an American citizen. Understand we got to get that back. Kids have got to be taught what is an American. You don't know. We were taught what your responsibilities were as an American citizen. These kids haven't got the slightest clue. Your generation has not been taught about who you are, where you came from, how you got here, the price that was paid, and what your responsibilities are for that fee having been paid. You wouldn't be behaving the way you were if you had that knowledge.
Let me ask you this. Conservatives, right? Republicans. Now, there's been some characters, just like there have been on the Democrat side.
Sure.
But, you could, in my opinion, stuff that went down with 9/11, I can't tell you what actually happened, but I will tell you I do not believe what they told us happened. Just because you see the video of the Pentagon, that doesn't look like a plane hit the Pentagon to me.
It looked like a missile, yeah.
Yeah, it looked to me like the three little frames that they released from that guard shack. It looked to me like that was a missile.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it did.
And it just so happened to hit an unoccupied area of the Pentagon. It's just like there's a lot of weird, just hokey stuff that went on with that, and it's like, okay, so I don't know what happened, but I know that what they told us happened didn't happen, right? And that was under Bush. Right? So It's like, in your lifetime, you've been around a long time. You've seen a lot of presidents, a lot of politicians. On the conservative side, do you recall anybody that was like this guy is actually for the people, pro-American? He's not a party puppet.
Well, they killed Kennedy because he believed in an America that nobody else believed in for it. They've tried to kill Trump for the same reason, believing that there's an America that half of the people here don't want. So that's two that come right off the top. Ronald Reagan, he's been considered a great guy, but it was Ronald Reagan that took away two things. One, he took away the money from Social Security and stuck it in the general fund and gave us paper. So now what was supposed to have been there all of our lives is constantly being threatened and wanting to be shared to people that have never worked a day or put in a dime.
Absolutely.
Then the second thing he did is he allowed the top end of corporate America to jet their income streams. It used to be confined. The top end of a company could not make but X amount of money over the lowest person within that company. Once he destroyed that, now you have the corporate American greed that is just, it's an orbit where the rest of us are running around.
Yeah, CEOs making $1 gazillion. And
those two of it were very, very bad. Now, when he did it, he broke the Soviet Union, with that. So it collapsed them. Was that a benefit? Yes. Are they right back to being a pain in the ass? Yes. Is this a dangerous situation? Very much so. You've got a guy over there that is being pushed into a really, really tight spot. And it could escalate. He's from the old KGB, and it could escalate overnight so rapidly people need to be worried about.
You think World War III is coming?
I think that one man can cause a major crisis, and he's getting desperate. If you're paying any attention at all, he's getting extremely desperate.
What's shocking to me is I don't hear a whole lot about Ukraine anymore.
Well, you don't hear anything from fake news. That's the whole problem. They're into the suppression of everything. These people do not represent our country anymore. You used to have respect, Cronkite and these men. You had tremendous respect and reverence for the people that gave you what was going on in the world and the manner that they talked to you in. They did not represent a Republican or a Democratic Party. They represented the news and the story. They don't even give you the story anymore. No, that story would fit this narrative. Everything is governed. Everything is checked about what it could be possibly be construed to mean. That's not news. That is suppression of news. And that hand in hand, they have to put warning labels on these channels declaring this is not a news channel. They have to. People are too innocent. People are too stupid, too naive. They're watching something that they're taking as the gospel. When you take the advice of somebody like Robert De Niro, you're looking at somebody who's been told what to say and where to stand his entire life. And yet you're giving him the benefit of wisdom over your life. A person told where to stand and what to say their entire life is somehow now a genius. I don't think so.
Yeah. He's an actor.
He's exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a professional
living
pretender.
in a bubble on top of everything else.
Yeah.
And the corruption in our government itself. I mean, all this money, they need to put an independent thing, an independent body that is civilian oriented, that gets holds the ethics, the standards, and so forth. The fact that they have caught Pelosi, Pocahontas, and all these people, and even the lady out of Dallas, Jackson, who was just a regular person, but now has $24 million in their checking account in a span of 4 years. That's impossible. Pocahontas has 84, and Pelosi has 280. That's impossible.
Yeah, not in public service.
There should be at least a law that you're audited when you go into public office, and you're audited every year for 5 years after you come out. The money shouldn't change.
Right. Well, it's they do this insider trading thing where it's not insider trading if you're Congress. I think that's crazy as hell. You're up there making decisions on what is going to dramatically affect these companies, and you get to bet on them, win, lose, or draw.
Poor Martha Stewart.
Yeah, poor Martha Stewart. Oh, my goodness.
It's sad. That's not even equal justice under the law. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you know, her stuff is clean, innocent stuff, in my opinion, compared to, like, Nancy Pelosi is blatantly saying, I'm going to tank this company with this new law, and then I'm going to bet against them, and I'm going to short the company. You know what I mean?
It really is surprising. There's 370 million of us, and yet we're being railed by, 1,000, 1,200 people?
Right.
1,200 people. We're allowing 1,200 people just to screw all 370 million of us.
Well,
now,
it's because those 1,200 managed to get a bunch of us idiots to vote for them. That's what happens.
Yeah, you think that we can figure this one out?
You would think so.
Our forefathers did, but it can be fixed, and it's worth fixing. This country is too blessed. It was put here for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's worth saving.
Yeah, I think we gotta get after it, because
you're doing it.
It seems like it's I hope so. I think
your voice, Tony, is the voice that it takes. There's a lot of kids sitting around now that are probably listening to this that we've already talked about enough stuff they've never even heard of.
Sure.
And unlike fake news, you're giving them another side of a story. They're forced to use that mind God gave them. That's important.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I intended to do when I started this. It's going to piss people off, maybe even on my own side, and I don't care. I want to get out what I believe to be true, and let the younger generation at least develop an opinion about it, rather than, like you say, stuffing them with an opinion.
That's right.
So.
Excuse me.
Well, I appreciate your time, and if you have something you want to say to that younger generation to wrap this up, I think, give them a piece of advice, or what your years have told you is the thing they need to keep an eye out for?
I would say this. To me, the most important word that there has ever been uttered is the word why. It is the foundation of all knowledge. It's the foundation of truth. Whatever you hear from somebody, whatever somebody wants something from you, if you will simply, why? Why will get you to the root of knowledge, and knowledge is power. Question everything. The motive, that's how we built the atomic bomb. It's also the truth that comes out in every jury box. Why? Why is this happening? If you will ask yourself that, you will use the greatest tool in the universe, your brain. The thing that supposedly separated us from the apes that we have been cultivated with. It's there. It's yours. Don't rent it out. Don't leave it to somebody else. Ask your question, why? And you'll get to the bottom of that. And you'll be a lot better off for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. It's been awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps another hard-hitting round of the social hand grenade. And if you're not walking away tonight with a little more gratitude for this country and a whole lot less tolerance for the nonsense poisoning it, you weren't listening. Because Keith Beyer gave us tonight wasn't just conversation. It's a reminder. A reminder that America isn't held together by hashtags, politicians, or trending outrage. It's held together by men like him. Men who served on steel decks in hostile waters. Men who came home and kept serving when the uniform came off. Men who never asked for applause, never demanded credit, and never forgot what the flag actually stood for. Keith lived the kind of American story they don't want to teach in schools anymore. Because it's built on sacrifice, discipline, courage, and honor. And those words make the soft skin, thin spine very uncomfortable. But they are the backbone of our nation. So as we close tonight, here's the truth bomb you could take with you. America doesn't survive on the people who complain about it. It survives because of the people who are defending it. Keith Beyer is one of those defenders. Keith, thank you for your service to this nation, to the USS Ranger, and to the people of Briarcliff. To my listeners, keep your eyes open, your spine straight, and your patriotism loud enough to make the fragile tremble. This is Tony Savage, signing off the Social Hand Grenade. Now a word from our social media director.
If you're not a commie, like and share.